Next episode, we're just gonna all yell at each other and
we
talk
could
over
just
the top of
talk
each other
over
the
each
whole
other.
time.
Yeah. You know,
Rocko,
we could just talk over each other.
You should
and
be
then,
talking too.
No, no one else can talk.
I mean, why
Rocko,
wouldn't
why
Rocko
aren't
be
you
talking
talking?
too?
I mean, like,
I hear
if I'm
Alexei talking.
and Marcus
I'm
is
talking.
and you
I don't hear Rocko talking at all. And he was the one who was making all the goddamn noise earlier.
Talking at all.
This happened on Tuesday, and we know it was really hot that day. Hot car. Joining us live in the Alert Center.
How long did you last in a hot car?
Facts that the heat index that day was 105 degrees. Hot car.
We don't yet know about a potential third suspect who was seen speeding away from federal agents at the scene. The whole thing had been a mystery to neighbors.
Hot car.
This is not an accident. This is pure negligence.
It's basically the different destinations for the same kinds of so-called issues. Like, I mean, it depends on the family situation in some cases, too, where the kid in question is going to go. Whether it's, a situation where parents aren't able to care for their kids. They're incarcerated or elsewhere, whatever the case is. So then they get shuttled off to the foster care system somehow, or DCFS, that whole route. Then there's the other side where the kind of in the side where Alexei comes from, where the parents are more or less there, but they made decisions regarding that they are going to send their kids a certain place. Well, you can't just if you're a viable parent, in the sense that you're there, or at least the state really hasn't gotten like that involved yet. You can't just decide to send your kid to a foster care home. Like, that's not really how that works. You don't. The state is the one who really makes those types of placement decisions, I guess, right?
Well, within less than 24 hours,
that was pretty incredible, right?
And you're coming home with us. I don't even know you,
right? So that's, that's really basically, I think, as far as I am concerned or can tell, or that's the difference really in the mechanics of where the kid is going to go, but it all kind of ends up in the same place. I mean, I forget, maybe, I don't know if you recall, Alexei, which, I just saw it, some specific school that we had talked about before is IFB. And I didn't realize that, but there is definitely an overlap with independent fundamentalist Baptist homes and the so-called troubled teen industry. Sometimes they're the same thing. It's not always some little church group that's like housing these kids. Sometimes it's more built up. And
GEDs, some of these guys only have GEDs. They're in college for something, and it's a part-time job, and they don't belong working with kids, and they're administering medications, without even having a degree to do so.
Yeah, you don't need a degree to administer medications, but what you do need is certain. Well, it kind of depends on where you are, though, too. It kind of depends on what state you're in and all of that kind of stuff, too, because there are different rules for every area. And that's another big part of the issue is there's not a
lovely Bible Belt.
There's not a standard,
Bible Belt in Missouri.
Yeah, but the same shit happens in Oregon and Florida. I mean, it's not necessarily just this religious thing. Although, as Alexei was kind of talking to me about earlier, off the air. If you're in a Utah facility like the Heritage Group or any of these other places like out of Provo, you're gonna get the Mormon stuff too. And if you're not affiliated, you're not going to be treated as well. I mean, that's kind of just how that
That's
goes.
correct.
Right. But
I mean, but also, I mean, like you can't relate to the staff either because they're a part of something that you're not a part of.
Correct.
And so that kind of brings you into it, you know, or sucks you in some way.
well, especially in your case, Rocco. I mean, the rapid pace of everything that happened to you, like right away after your father got killed, is just mind blowing. I can't even imagine like how disruptive that would be to a kid's like whole being. I am kind of curious a little bit more about kind of your journey out. When finally you were able to leave.
I'll get a little bit into it.
Yeah.
Well, see, what they would do is they would sit me down like every day, practically, the one foster family. And if you hear this, Vicky Hollenbeck, Al Hollenbeck, Dwayne Hollenbeck, Chris Hollenbeck, you can't handcuff me right now. This is freedom of speech.
That's
What
right.
you did to me was abuse me. What you did to me was not only physically abuse me, but you also verbally and psychologically damaged me by telling me my mom didn't want anything to do with me. Meanwhile, she was trying to call every single day. So what they did is not only did they draw a wedge in between me and my mother, but they drew a wedge in between me and my grandparents. And now they're no longer here, and I treated them like hell because I thought what the sheriff told me was the actual truth.
Right. Now, I mean, it would have been better if you were placed in a situation that actually cared for you and about you. That would
They were ready to pay.
That would be
Plane
different.
ticket and all. Plane ticket and all.
Wow. So
It's called illegally kidnapping. It's called cash for kids.
Right.
Once again, Nancy Schaefer, she's no longer here. She was a senator of Georgia. She spoke out on it.
right.
And she said that they use, specifically, she said they use religious exemptions and all that stuff too. They use it.
Oh yeah, very much so, because they believe that what they're doing, or at least they say they believe what they're doing is righteous and good. Now, this is the Missouri Baptist Children's Home you're talking about, basically, right?
Misery, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So that's an offshoot of the church itself. It's been around for a long, long time. Like the home was established April 1st, 1886 of all dates, right? Haha. It's been serving. This is their own. It's actually a link. They're linked in. They have a LinkedIn page, which is very strange. So that all changed. I mean, this was like a children's home for most of
Residential. They turned into.
in 2001, right? That's when things like turned into what they are now. They reorganized the corporation and turned it into more of a delivery agency for the home. Like it became a system where the corporation would go out and find kids and bring them to the home. Like,
Well, you can go on and type in the Springfield location for Missouri Baptist Children's Home Adoption Center, and there are several horrible reviews. And I wrote a review, and it got 9 likes.
is that right?
And I reached over 1,000 people, it said. And now all of a sudden everything's taken down. My post was taken down, and Because, like, I had a post up where I wanted to rally in front of this place. I really did. Number one, I feel everybody's entitled to their medical records. There's no age limit to medical records. There might be to, the program records, but the medical records speak for themselves as well. Overly medicating somebody is not the answer to helping.
That's no, you're right, and the issue with that is it's really difficult to determine, like, after the fact, kind of what was going on regarding over medicating and that kind of thing, unless there were accurate records kept of that kind of thing, which I would imagine isn't the case. If they're over medicating, they're probably not keeping accurate records either.
Well, did you hear about the building that burned down? The IT building that burned down was supposedly all those foster care records out here in the Missouri area.
Oh, is that right?
After that gentleman spoke on the news at Jefferson City about the child sex trafficking that's going on out here. Yeah.
By the church affiliated groups in a lot of cases too.
Just the foster care system.
Sure.
It's a huge cash cow.
Well,
it's a huge cash cow. You can get 5 kids in one shot. Think about how much money they're getting paid a day.
It's a lot of money.
And it's deplorable.
So looking at the website for the home, now they're claiming a bunch of stuff that doesn't seem possible, and what they're saying on their website is that in 2022 alone, MBCH served 2,853 children, youth and families with blah blah blah, and they also claim that last year they gave 190 children forever homes. I said, took care of like 2,800 children and families, whatever that means. Saved 22 survivors of trafficking, whatever that means.
Only 22? Where are the others? That's why I put the post up. Where are the others?
Gave 276 mothers and babies resources and support, and served 448 youth in foster care. Those numbers just don't make any sense. If you take them one at a time, it doesn't make any sense.
1,000 kids per year go missing in the state of Missouri, they said.
That's a lot of kids.
And 66% of them are trafficked.
Well, how do we know that? I mean,
how
do we know?
I mean, exactly. I'd love to get to the bottom of that. But
because we want to know if we're right or wrong. We want to make sure we're right. There are things that we know. I mean, there are things that you've been through personally and things that you've experienced personally that you absolutely know to be true. What a lot of stuff that we don't know, and sometimes it involves just sometimes digging a little bit under the surface of things to find out like who's doing what or where they were affiliated or where they moved to or where they came from. I don't think we have a need to be especially careful about saying some of the stuff, but it's important to me to take what these places say and then turn them back onto themselves, to say, wait a minute, this is your claim. So you have to back it up somehow with records, like medical records, adoption records, placement records, all of that stuff. And why isn't that kind of stuff more accessible, especially to the people who were involved? Because it's not.
Because it's not. It's destroyed. It was conveniently destroyed, just like MK Ultra, Montauk.
So when I was telling you, hold on, before you get into that, when I was telling you about my dad who was adopted, he was removed from the custody of his parents. There's some mystery behind that. It was like this in the New York area, and then he ended up down in Georgia with this Southern Baptist family
Oh God.
who adopted him, and he was like 5 or 6. I guess he was such a cool kid or whatever that he was taken
Yep.
away, put in an orphanage, and was adopted very quickly. But years later, when the orphanage closed, they burned it. They burned everything. Like they put all the records in the building and burned it down. So
Yeah.
so that
But
just
what about
ended
this?
all of
What
it.
about the
Ended
staff?
it ended any research into anything that ever happened because it's all gone. Like it's just all a big mystery.
What about maybe some of these made up organizations, maybe that were in the homes, maybe that when the place is shut down or whatever,
What do you
they obtained people's files because they were like staff kids or something, and they got in and what about that? What if somebody has a hold of somebody's records? You never know.
You never
This
know
stuff-
until you know. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
that is the
exactly.
thing.
And there's
You
so
don't
many
know until it's
possibilities.
actually in your face, and you say, "Oh, here's what it is." The good news is that that kind of thing happens all the time. But the bad part of that is sometimes it happens after the bad things have already happened. You know, when the stuff comes out. Oh, the kid died, and then and then there's a 2-year inquiry about how the kid died, and by that time, people don't even know what they're supposed to be thinking about. There should
Yeah, I
be
totally-
much more swift action when it comes to these kinds of things. And like
I disassociated for a very long time.
I can imagine.
It took me a very long time to even apologize to somebody. It took me a very long time to do certain things, like, go hang out with friends or,
Right.
and do things. It took me a little while to get used to the crowd. But it seemed that I fell into the category of wanting to always follow the others.
Right.
And it didn't get me anywhere. But then again, 14, 15, almost 16 on medication, from Seroquel to Zoloft to all these different meds, clearing my mind of that because my mom said, you're not going back on any of them.
Uh-huh.
She said, I'll rush you to the hospital. But I'm not allowing that. No.
Well, it's really troubling when a kid gets put somewhere, and then suddenly it's decided that they need to be on all these medications when that wasn't the case before, and there's oftentimes really no basis for the prescriptions or for the advice to be put on these medications. How that happens sometimes is either there's no assessment whatsoever. It's just kind of what's done. Like they have their whole menu of medications that are given just as a matter of fact.
That happened to me. I was
a
in
lot.
Missouri.
Yeah.
In St. Louis, when I got brought to St. Louis, that Missouri Baptist Children's Home, that was the first one I was in. And, it looked good from the beginning, but when you got to the back, literally it was like a jail. They had a girl's side and they had a boy's side.
Right.
But they tried to call it a crisis center, but it had locked doors, like I said, plexiglass windows. The minute I got there, they said, you need to take these meds.
Right.
And I wasn't taking them.
All that stuff is done
I didn't know what they were.
All that stuff is done for a
know.
reason, right? And the locked doors, the silence, the medication. If they didn't do that and they just ran their home just kind of as a home, just as a regular home with kids in it and stuff, they couldn't
Correct.
call it a crisis center. They couldn't call it make all these inflammatory statements about how they're like saving these kids, and
But then they're like this, let's go to a Billy Graham concert, but you got to wear a tie and you got to act right.
right, they have
Or
to
you're
look the
gonna be
part.
locked up.
Exactly, that's right. They have to look the part, so they have to impose all of these ideas onto their system, so that when people look at it from afar, they say, "Oh, look at all those kids on medication. They're in locked rooms. They're being kept safe. They're being kept quiet. They're being kept away from me." Right? They're being kept away from my community. Thank God these kids are somewhere locked away in a home right now. Because if that wasn't what they projected, nobody would care anymore. They'd just be like, "Oh, yeah, that's fine." And the money wouldn't come in, and the kids would be just fine. And they wouldn't have a home, right? It wouldn't exist. So they have to put all of these crazy procedures in place to make it look right. That's it.
Well, I actually live very close to Mormonville, which is Independence, Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, is that right?
I live like 25 minutes away from the slide that they say Jesus is going to...
Hold on, stop. There's a slide?
They swear. It's the capital.
Hold on.
Eisenhower, one of the presidents, had a house here in Independence, Missouri.
Yeah.
And yeah, they built this temple, man.
Slide for Jesus.
Like it's good, man. No, it's
That's
holy
stupid.
shit.
Oh my God.
And then it's like
I think we got the name of the show.
Yes.
Sliding for Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey man, I'll
Fuck.
tell you what, the Mormons are sick. They were sending to one of my friends.
Yeah.
They were sending his underage kid.
Oh no.
Because I don't know if Alexei heard, but I have a friend that had to have exorcisms done, and he had 3 demons come out of him because in the Mormon religion, they believe that you have to get baptized to a dead person because it's going to help
Yes.
that.
Oh yeah.
it's
Did you get
sick.
to experience any of that stuff, Alexei, while you were at Heritage? Any?
So I mean, no,
no
because that's
ancestor.
done
No
in the
ancestor.
temple.
No ancestor.
Yeah,
No, that's done in the temple, but and I wouldn't be allowed anywhere near the temple
Right.
because you have to have a special. You have to go through a Melchizedek priesthood.
You didn't have the
to be
glow.
able to go into.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
I
didn't have the
didn't have the
Mormon glow.
Melchizedek glow.
Right. It's
The
real.
Melchizedek glow.
That's
Yes.
real.
It's very real.
You can
along
look at-
with the underwear.
You can look at pictures. And I think there's been more than one study or whatever, but
my
it's kind of
God.
silly. But you can look at pictures of people, and people can pick out the Mormons because they have this special glow. For real. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Demons, I would guess. Certainly. So
No, it's lack
It's
of
horrible.
masturbation,
It's horrible.
something like that. It
soaking.
makes
Yeah.
you glow. It makes the jizz come out of your skin or something.
That's right. What's it called?
My friend,
Soaking.
my friend said it was the most
Soaking.
horrible experience.
Yeah, no, that's bad. So is it? I have a question. I was looking some of this stuff up. Is the now closed Agape boarding school? That's IFB too, right? That was the brother
Yes.
program
Well,
of
I honestly,
Circle of
I
Hope,
really-
right?
I hate these letters. You know what I mean? Like seriously.
Oh, well, we can
I
use the
don't
full
wanna
name.
do that. It's
They-
like being a label. You know what I mean? In a way.
Right. But what I'm asking is,
You know, I don't think you have to have
We'll just go.
IFB or ways of teaching.
yes, sir.
Because you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, with Missouri Baptist, I mean, the restraining was horrible. I seen Destiny get restrained by a 200-pound fat dude, okay? Big dude. And she was screaming. I could see the tears running down her eyes. It was horrible, man, what these fuckers did, man.
Yeah.
They're animals. They're animals.
Yep. I mean,
And you know what? That's why I'm gonna get a dash cam, and that's why I'm gonna start investigating this shit. Somebody's got to do something about it, man. And the problem is we can't be afraid. I mean, shit. Look what happened at the you know what. I'm not gonna say that because we probably get kicked off, unfortunately. But you know. To me, it's like I'm ready to go for revolution for people in TTI, even if I'm not considered a TTI to them.
it's the same thing. Look, oh, come on, man.
Right,
It's all the same. It's all the same stuff.
I don't want to stir the pot with people. So
well, no, and I understand what Em was saying to you, and she has a point. And the point being is that
the point is I said some really horrible stuff, and it was I'm not making an excuse, but I'm explaining when I get triggered.
Right.
Sometimes I can say some very nasty things.
We all can. It's all right.
It was a homophobic, come across.
All right.
It did get played. That I'm a little upset about, but whatever. You know what? I did a public live today apologizing about that.
Oh, good.
But I'm not going to stay stuck in that. And that's what these people in these fucking programs want us to do. They don't want us forming an alliance and going after these these predators.
No, but it works though. People do though. That's the thing. People do have success. People like Alan Knoll. People like Amanda Householder. Who grew up in these environments and then did something about it. Pretty good stuff.
Them for that.
Yeah, definitely amazing.
They're the type of people that make me go further.
But I mean, what got Agape shut down? Okay, so what got Agape shut down? Agape shut down because there were multiple lawsuits against them, and those multiple lawsuits caused multiple press agencies to pick up the topic.
Right.
Correct.
And that forced their hand. Now they've reopened as something else. They're exactly the same thing. They're just a different name. They've rebranded.
Oh, definitely. That's kind of what I was coming. The point was that the independent Baptist community isn't going to not have a boys' home. They're not. It's not. I mean, it's Brian Clemson, the director of that place, who. I mean, he got charged and convicted of sex crimes with these guys, and he's still allowed to kind of function. It's just insane. Like,
see, this is the sad part.
He just can't be around or initiate physical contact with these kids, but he's still there. That's the crazy thing. That all these people really don't ever go anywhere. And you don't see prison sentences. You don't see shit.
No,
it's crazy.
5 years for that one guy. 5 years.
Yeah.
From the show Let Us Pray.
Right. I don't know if it was the first or second guy, but there were several.
Dominic.
One of the youth pastors guys. I don't know, but yeah. I mean, the guy was like out and back at it like pretty quick.
I mean, he was a nutcase, dude. Like just the clips of him swinging arms around.
Yeah. Let's see. What else are we talking about? So, I mean, I'm glad that. I mean, it is like whack-a-mole, but it's still important to get places like Circle of Hope and Agape shut down, even if it's gonna pop up somewhere else. That's kind of the duty of anyone who's interested in like preventing this kind of thing is to stop it wherever you can. It's not like we want to say, oh well, it really doesn't matter because they're just going to do it again anyway. I mean, that's kind
I
of
heard the rock pile
that's kind of
got
been the
moved.
case forever. You know, I mean, since humanity first got the idea that we could control each other, it's been happening. So it is our duty to keep fighting it. I think, you know, regardless of whether or not that guy or that guy gets punished enough. You know, I mean, because
Nope.
what are the choices? Or you can either like say, well, it doesn't matter and leave it alone, and then know that you're not doing anything to prevent these other kids from being hurt, or you can step in and like rebel and say, knock it off. And and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we can prevent you as much as possible from hurting other kids. That's it.
I joined a group, you know what I'm saying? One of those groups, an independent fundamentalist group.
Oh, did you?
And people have been very open with me on there, and just networking, and you know, I'm just trying to stay to myself and stay in my own lane as well.
Good. Don't say mean things to people and alienate them though. Just be careful. You know, we don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're 100%.
Well, I mean, it only hurts you. Like, or you know how that goes. Like, you don't want to alienate the people that might be able to like offer assistance of some kind, or you know, who knows? That person might be like become like your best ally that you didn't even know existed. You know?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
And I do know that this is going to take the rest of my life to heal from.
Sure.
I do know that. And yes, I am on a medication, and it does help me. But it's not no like, you know, crazy amounts. Like, I'm proud of myself, you know. But you know, there were times where, you know, I had some serious manic episodes where I broke stuff in my own home, where I just like totally broke down. You know, like I left my family for 2 years over this stuff. Not over this. It was over this, but I was trying to suppress it, but it was trying to come out.
Right.
And I was, you know, flailing off at the wrong people and, you know, saying stupid stuff. And, you know, and this lasted a little while. And, you know, I will say, has been one of the ones to chastise me in a sense. But it's not like some of what I got, you know what I mean? Because, but I understand why I got it. So,
right.
And I left it alone. I don't do that. If a survivor messages me, or friends me, or asks, "Can I message you?" I'll say yes.
Good. All right. Well, good. I'm glad we kind of got that out of the way. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is this other project that we kind of kicked off, you know, as things as they happen. Like, hey, you want to do this? You know, hey, you want to do a documentary on the Worldwide Association of Specialized Programs or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Right. You want to dig into NatSap and find out what they're all about? Yes, we do, because these organizations, WASP doesn't officially exist anymore. NatSap certainly does. The joke of a regulatory body, the Joint Commission, exists. You know, all of that stuff is still out there. So and there's no information about it. It's just so ridiculous sometimes. You see like some stupid website with a dumb, you know, school or home, and there's this big label that it says, "Oh, we're accredited by the fucking Joint Commission." You're like, okay, and people are like, "Oh, okay." Well, what is that? Right? What is that exactly? What is NatSap?
I'm from New York.
We know what it is, and it's not that impressive. You know?
Do you know about Summit?
What is the Joint Commission?
What is it? Right? What is because you hear about it all the time. You're like, oh, wow, the Joint Commission.
Yeah, what is that? I see it on every site. What is that?
I don't go on sites, so
we're gonna find out right now, because it's always associated with like a rehab or a
Okay.
right.
Okay.
What is that? What is it? So the
And I
joint,
also said something about hospitals, and Missouri Baptist Children's Home is funded by a hospital.
right. So
So where do babies really go? Because I know that I seen on the news something like a circle, and you could just put the baby right through it. That's
no, that's yeah. You can still drop your baby off at a fire department.
Yeah, but that's disgusting.
Well, it is what it is. I don't mean better a
It's
fire
better
department than a
child
dumpster.
ended up dead.
I mean, right?
Or
I
in a
would consider
dumpster. Yeah.
consider that the opportunity to dump your newborn that you can't take care of at a fire department better than a dumpster or a toilet. I mean,
Definitely.
you gotta like there has to be some point where we can all kind of agree, regardless. I mean, even the worst of the worst would have to eventually agree that you know.
Yeah. I feel you there.
It
I feel you there.
doesn't mean that anything beyond that is good. But at a certain point, you're like, okay, well, I'd rather have.
I just know a lot of younger girls because I'm from New York, and I got involved in stuff that I had no business being involved in when I got out of foster care.
Right.
I met a lot of, up-to-do type of people. I got involved, I'm not even going to really discuss it because I don't like war stories. I think the war stories, it pushes people a little bit.
All right. So the Joint Commission involves healthcare. So and when like you see like like a detox center or rehab or
Wow.
they're supposed to set forth certain standards that need to be applied to whatever situation you're in. Like,
Right.
Like just like, mopping the floors kind of a thing, at the very basic
Right.
level. That's all it is. It's just one of those regulating bodies that, they're staffed by MDs and they're on a board and they meet once a quarter or whatever and say, oh, well, it looks like we need to change the standard and incorporate, different pronoun ideas into our vernacular to make sure that everyone's cool. That kind of stuff. Hey, let's make sure that everybody on board at your organization is certified in some way. They all have their continuing education, stuff going on. It's
well, that's not happening in TTI. So how does that apply to TTI? Who are the people that are doing it for TTI?
well, as long as there's a rehab involved.
I think that there's a lot of elite involved.
Well, sure.
Like elite.
So the TTI
Yeah,
portion
yeah,
is,
yeah.
right. If there's a school, if it's just a school, like, and it doesn't have.
Did you hear
it's
about
not-
the girls?
Rocko, hold on.
Hold on, Rocco. So
Jesus.
The Joint Commission is involving healthcare. So if there's a rehab, they're going to be like the guiding light, whatever.
Okay, but if it's a troubled teen place.
Right, NatSap is involved with the same kind of thing. But specifically
Right.
therapeutic schools and programs. It's just the regulatory body for that. And then there are other accreditation systems too, but the problem with all of them is that they really don't mean anything. It's just a label to stick on something like a brand to say that no, this is a real thing. We're a real organization. It's kind of like Boogie Nights. Like, yeah, we're doing this for real.
It's flair.
It's flair.
It's flair.
Exactly. So it makes people say, "Oh, well, I guess that's a legitimate organization if they're
Yeah.
sponsored by NatSap and their logo is guiding the way." Right? I mean, they're guiding the way to what? I'm not sure, but they're definitely guiding the way. It says so right on their website. That's kind of what that is. It's just a label to put on something. Best practices. You know, they're going to put out their little sheet about the best practices. The members of the National Association of Therapeutic Schools and Programs provide residential therapeutic and or education services to all children, adolescents, and young adults entrusted to them by parents and guardians. It's just, so NATSAP is TTI, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
that, if the individual schools are like offshoots of this in a sense.
Yes.
So it makes
a hub.
me wonder if who really should be looked at, especially, I mean, in speaking about this documentary type project, they have to be like way high on the list to research and find out exactly what it is that they say
Definitely.
they do. You know, what do they do?
Definitely.
They have a big building. I'm looking at the website. There's a big building. It says the Joint Commission up on. And what do those people do in those offices? I just am so curious about that. The Joint Commission.
Well, they organize and they fundraise and they do these fucking yearly retreats where they get education consultants to come.
Yeah.
And they blow smoke up their ass.
Yes.
And they talk about their programs and they talk about their needs to get money for their programs.
And they have a gold standard of quality too. Which I wasn't aware of that, but they have a gold standard. Whatever that means.
Yeah.
They're telling me all about it, about performance measurements and specifications.
I mean,
manuals. It's amazing.
I mean, I'd like to do this WASP documentary, but I almost feel that WASP is being covered. There's already a series coming out. There's already another one that possibly may come out.
That's interesting.
Maybe we should go after NatSap.
Well, I think I'd like to do at least an episode just fully on NatSap at the very least. Just kind of dive into that like completely and take a good look at everything that they do and who they're involved with. Just to, because it's just that's really not something that's really being discussed at all, as far as I know.
I don't hear it at all.
And when I think about it, the people may be even more able, if they were willing and responsible to change the nature of the troubled teen industry and how they operate. It would be them, because they could say, hey, you know what? Unless you guys do this certain thing a certain way and treat people in a more reasonable and better way, then we're not going to.
But Marcus, NatSap is all of the owners of the programs. That is NatSap.
Right.
That's who they are.
So that's an issue.
So none of that is going to happen.
It's not. But we can talk about it as if it might.
Sure.
Because that's the only way to even attempt to start things rolling in a certain direction. We can talk about what they should be doing, and it's just so there's just so much money and so much power involved that it's so difficult to sometimes to. It's like you were saying. It took all these lawsuits and this sexual predator who was running this school to come, to be brought into the light, and it took years and years. Mm-hmm. I was looking at some stuff from 2 years ago. Remember when? Now we didn't know at the time what it was all about. Remember when all those girls had tape over their mouths and were taking pictures and all of that stuff, and they were.
Oh, I knew what it was about. Yeah,
that was the documentary. That was Let Us Pray. That was being developed then. That was that. As they were going through all of the things with Circle of Hope and and Agape, at the same time, they were building this documentary about what they were going through. Very smart. Because they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And as it turns out, things kind of went in the direction that they should have gone in. I don't know if
Yes.
I don't know if the householders are in prison yet. I don't think so. I think they're still.
No, they're not.
Probably not.
No, and they supposedly got their ankle monitors taken off, and their trial got pushed back a year.
Oh, is that right?
Listen, yes, I live in the Missouri area. I'd love to go out there with cameras.
Well, that's something that we're talking about doing. Like, as long as we can
I'm ready.
work
man.
up the resources to be able to do stuff like that. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Citizen arrest. Oh man.
Well,
But
you do what you
it's
can.
like, yeah, they're sticky fingers though. That's the other part. They can have your one hand handcuffed in court. They've already tried to come after me and my children. It's also a generational thing when it comes to foster care. So if they knew I was in their system, he has two beautiful little girls.
Yeah. Well, they
I'm
might
sure we'll
they might consider you to be a bad parent and decide that they want to. Absolutely. Like if they recognize you as like, oh, this guy was like in our program before, and now he's got kids.
I have had those threats.
Sure.
Honestly,
I believe it.
have.
I believe it.
And I told them where to go too. Anyway,
I bet you did.
I said, first of all, you don't have a warrant. I said, second of all, look around the living room and look at all the toys they have. Ride-on toys, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Huge television, food in the fridge. They want for nothing.
Right.
And their mother's a therapist. So, like, my fiance, it's like, come on now, get out of here. You don't belong here.
True. Well, good.
All because a sheriff or a cop who probably knew me from the past because of getting in trouble when I was in the system a little bit when I lived in Kansas.
Oh, right. You were talking about that too. Yeah. Yep.
And they arrested me, brought me back when I came back to Missouri I'd say 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
They arrested me on a charge from when I was a minor that I never even got paperwork on or anything. And they were trying to give me 15 years for stolen buses. Me and some other kids in the program just decided, to get up, and run. And,
That's very
I
interesting.
ended up. We drove one of the school buses right into a lake. I mean, I was a little loose, but I was at a point where I didn't even care.
Right. No, I hear it. We hear it. We can still hear it, and that's okay. There's a reason I wanted you to speak out anyway, and I kind of know what I was going to get, and it's Rocko, but it's important that you have this voice, and because you're not saying anything that's negative, or wrong, or you're just telling the truth, and sometimes the truth is really rambunctious, Sometimes it's like, holy shit, I can't even think of anything else other than all this stuff that I have had to constantly go through. And that's part of the problem. That's part of why we do this, is because we see and we've seen directly how this stuff, affects people, how you're treated as children. Of course, it's going to affect how you behave as an adult, and in some cases, we don't make it, and I'm glad that we're all still here so we can continue to like voice our concerns and talk about our experiences and the strength that we have to continue and the hope that things will change. That's kind of the idea. And it's okay to get frustrated and angry. And this isn't, I didn't necessarily want to, dive back into the captive youth industry. I don't know what you call it. To be polite, it's cool to say what you need to say. What threw me off a little bit is the whole idea that, Alexei, that you were talking about WASP and perhaps we should change our focus to like NatSap and at least bodies that still really kind of exist, and that are still in operation and are still having big effects on people's lives. It kind of threw off what I wanted to speak about regarding the whole documentary thing. But the good news is this such a new idea that we started developing that we're not, we're not even emotionally locked into anything like in particular, which is
right.
But I'm glad you brought that up because it really does make me reconsider like our approach as far as how do you effectively attack an institution, that and at the same time keep yourself
guarded,
legally, ethically safe. We're not going to blow anything up. We're not.
No.
Right. I mean, maybe we'll like blow up the spot and get a bunch of people to like start like paying more attention to NatSap. But we want to make. I mean, I will be willing to call out people by name. I'm always willing to do that as long as like it's accurate. In most cases, what I find is possible is just using their own information against them and say, "Oh, you say you're this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Well, it appears that you're something different. So let's figure out what the truth is between who you say you are and what you're actually doing."
Right.
Yeah. It's just.
I agree.
Yeah, and this was kind of an impromptu thing today too. I wanted to kind of get the setup fixed up a little bit better, So just a way to blow off some steam for an hour or so.
I understand.
For sure.
Yeah, but
and it was good. There was no like yelling at each other.
We can do that too if you want. We can yell at each other.
I was just about to say I'm down for that. I'm totally down for that.
So I wanted to.
Man!
So the Wall Street. I guess the last thing is just a little reading series. I always like to include something to read. This is the Wall Street Journal's review of Let Us Pray.
Cool.
Yeah, and so let's see. It's by the story's by John Anderson. And it says, there is so much that is depressingly familiar about Let Us Pray, a ministry of scandals, a 4-part documentary that examines sexual abuse within the independent fundamental Baptist Church. Never heard of it? According to one source in the program, 8 million people identify as IFB. Few of them are going to be happy. Will viewers? No, but that's not really the intention. Outrage, indignation, outrage, and empathy are the objectives of a series in which no shortage of pain is revealed by very brave young women, if well beyond the point that we get the point. What is significant about Let Us Pray is not the experiences of the individuals involved, but the institutional structures that not only enabled their abusers, but gave them succor. The phenomenon aren't new or particularly American, but the pattern does seem to repeat itself historically in cult-like manifestations, insular breakaway congregations devoted to the, quote, literal interpretation of the Bible, a subjugation of their women, a dogmatic assumption of infallibility among the men, particularly pastors, and a willingness to cover up crime, all of which adds up to a recipe for exploitation. The looming question about many of these entities is whether the sex enabled corruption or corruption inspired the sex. Sex, S-E-C-T-S, by the way.
Right.
Directed by Emmy Award-winning filmmaker Sharon Leese, Let Us Pray includes first-hand accounts from survivors, church defectors, and activists. There's also a primer in IFB history. Jack Hyles, who took over the First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana in 1959 and was a pioneer in the megachurch movement, is cited as the leading light in the IFB movement, and the clips in which he appears seem a mix of Elmer Gantry, Cotton Mather, and Howard Beale. One assumes the editing was selective, but still. They showed this guy, like, super charismatic and weird. The preacher guy, this Jack Hyles.
Yeah.
The church as he established it, and Hyles himself, was pure fire and brimstone, King James only. See that, to your point, Rocko, and misogynistic to an alarming degree.
Yep.
Hyles isn't accused of hands-on abuse, but he and other church leaders are alleged to have ignored reports from church members, failed to file the police reports they claim to have made, or shuffled their youth pastors from region to region and church to church to obscure the trail of sex crimes left in their wake. As with other institutions that might come to mind, the reputation of the church always took priority, or so attests Let Us Pray, over the well-being of the young women being hurt and who would be hurt again. In the IFB presented here, a rape victim is always guilty. The same kind of abusive atmosphere has been recounted many times and among a variety of groups, from the Catholic Church to Mormon fundamentalists, from the Boy Scouts to bona fide cults such as the Branch Davidians. The upbeat notion perhaps is that depravity is pan-denominational. The dispiriting aspect is that the predators can hide behind church doors, or as in the case of, in several Let Us Pray stories, statutes of limitations. The good news is that beyond the considerable amount of setup involved in explaining the culpable IFB churches and the women's hard-fought battles, Episode 4 finally gets us into court and what serves as a finale, one that you are never sure you can anticipate. Nobody wins the lottery exactly, but there is a payoff. So,
This happened on Tuesday,
there you go.
and we
There's
know
the-
it was really
I think
hot
it's
that
pretty
day.
good. That seems like a very honest
joining us live in the Alert Center.
How long did you last in a hot bar?
Facts that the heat index that day was 105 degrees.
We don't yet know about a potential third suspect who was seen speeding away from federal agents at the scene. The whole thing had been a mystery to neighbors.
This is not an accident. This is pure negligence.